Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I'd like to make a statement on industrial action and minimum service levels. Nurses, paramedics, transport workers are called key workers for a reason. They truly are the lifeblood of the country. Every person sitting in this chamber is grateful for the work and the job that they do, and we agree, and I know everyone will agree with me, that we cannot do without them. So the government will always defend their ability to withdraw their labour. But we also recognise the pressures faced by both those working in the public sector. And yesterday I invited union leaders in for talks across government, and I'm pleased to say we've seen some progress. We want to resolve disputes where possible while delivering what is fair and reasonable to the taxpayer as well. And at the moment, all households are struggling with the repercussions of high inflation caused by COVID and Putin's barbaric invasion of Ukraine, and this government absolutely focused on tackling that. So granting inflation-busting pay deals which step outside of the independent pay review settlement process is not the sensible way to proceed, and it won't provide a fair outcome. What we continue to consult on instead is to find meaningful ways forward for the unions, to work with employers to improve the process and discuss the evidence which we have now submitted. In the meantime, the government also has a duty to protect the public's access to essential public services. Because whilst we absolutely believe in the right to strike, we're duty-bound to protect the lives and the livelihoods of the British people. The British people need to know that when they have a heart attack, a stroke or a serious injury, that an ambulance will turn up, and that if they need hospital care, they have access to it. And that's because they need to know that not only are those services available, but they're able to get trains and buses, particularly for those who are most likely to be the least well off in society. So I'd like to thank the Royal College of Nurses, who during the last strike worked with health officials at a national level to ensure safe levels of cover were in place when they took industrial action. They kept services like emergencies and acute care running. They may have disagreed, but they showed that they could do their protest in a reasonable and mature way whilst withdrawing their labour. As ever, they put the public first. We need all our public services to do the same. A lack of timely cooperation from the ambulance unions meant employers could not reach agreement nationally for minimum safety levels during recent strikes, and health officials were left guessing at the likely minimum coverage, making contingency planning almost impossible and putting everyone's constituents' lives at risk. The ambulance strike plan for tomorrow still do not have minimum safety levels in place. And this will result in patchy emergency care for the British people, and this cannot continue. It's for moments like this that we're introducing legislation, focusing on blue light emergency services and delivering on our manifesto commitment to secure minimum service on the railways as well. So I'm introducing a bill that will give government the power to ensure that vital public services will have to maintain a basic function by delivering minimum safety levels, ensuring that lives and livelihoods are not lost. Mr. Speaker, we're looking at 6 key areas, each of them critical for keeping the British people safe and society functioning. These are health, education, fire, rescue, transport, border security and nuclear decommissioning. We do not want to use this legislation, but we must ensure the safety of the British public. During the passage of the bill, we intend to consult on what an adequate level of coverage looks like in fire, ambulance and in rail services. For the other sectors covered in the bill, we hope to reach minimum service agreements that mean that we don't have to use that power in the bill, and they will be able to come to that position just as the nurses have done in the recent strikes. Mr. Speaker, this is a common sense approach, and we're not the first to follow it. The legislation will bring us in line with modern European countries like France and Spain and Italy and Germany, each of whom already have these types of rules in place. Even even the guardians of workers' rights around the world, the International Labour Organization, to whom the TUC themselves subscribe, say that minimum service levels are a proportionate way of balancing the right to strike with the need to protect the wider public. Because the first job of any government is to keep the public safe. And unlike other countries, we are not proposing banning those strikes, but we do need to know that unions will be held to account. And members of opposition who object to minimum safety levels, well, they'll need to explain, Mr. Speaker, to their constituents why it is that if you had a heart attack, a stroke, or life-threatening illness on a strike day, there are no minimum safety standards in place. And, Mr. Speaker, I see they don't want to hear it, but they'll also need to explain why their leader, without hearing any of these details, has already promised to stand in the way of this legislation and to repeal minimum safety levels which are in the interests of their own constituents, safety levels that are in place in every other mature European democracy in our neighbours' countries that protect lives and will protect livelihoods in this country. And, Mr. Speaker, that's the difference between Conservative government who take these difficult decisions and protect the welfare of our nation and the opposition who too often appear to be in the pay of their union paymasters. I commend this statement to the House.